From mysterious murders to a shadow demon that watches you while you sleep. Join us as we take a cautious peep at 11 haunted asylums that are sure to give you chills.
This forbidding building was a private home before becoming a hospital during World War II. It is known to have a haunted bedroom where the spectre of a murdered servant girl begins to cry at exactly 4:30 a.m. Several caretakers who have stayed in the room say they've seen the girl standing at the foot of the bed. She rants almost incoherently about a man who did something to her. Some say she was raped and murdered by the former owner's son. Now her spirit is trapped eternally looking for an escape. Located in Hong Kong, this former asylum was used by Japanese soldiers to execute enemies in World War II. There are reports of decapitated victims roaming the halls, the sound of crying, and even visions of a man catching on fire. Because of this, the Sai Ying Pun Hospital has been nicknamed the High Street Ghost House. Located in western West Virginia, this asylum housed a range of occupants, from murderers and rapists to petty offenders of substance abuse and even sufferers of depression. This odd mix of patients led to a harrowing environment of violence and abuse, leaving behind tortured souls that cry out in the night. The traumatic pain of ice pick lobotomies, rape and torture is imprinted upon this property, giving all those who visit a cold and forbidding feeling. Visitors have reported objects moving on their own, lights flickering, shadows in the distance disappearing. In Ward R is the room of a young girl named Lily that died in the asylum. They say on some cold nights you can see her waiting patiently for someone to play with her before disappearing. Are the former patients doomed to wander the echoed halls of this troubled asylum, or is it just a case of visitors projecting their fears? Considered one of the most haunted places in South Korea, the Ganjam Psychiatric Hospital is about as creepy as it gets. After its doors inexplicably closed to the public in the mid-90s, rumours spread that patients and even staff had been mysteriously dying. Many speculated that one of the doctors at the hospital had been performing experimental procedures on unwilling patients. A formal statement was never released as to why the hospital went into foreclosure. Now the property sits overgrown and abandoned, each room paint-flecked and stained, broken glass everywhere. One urban explorer noted in their blog that sticky notes were left at an unmanned desk, one stating that the hospital should have been evacuated immediately. Locals warn all tourists to stay away from the property. They say eerie groans can be heard at night, lone figures spotted in windows. There's even one report of a visitor running out of the building covered in scratches and blood, saying that something clawed at him. Whatever's happening in Ganjam Psychiatric Hospital, I'd suggest you think twice before visiting. This forbidding hospital in St. Augustine, Florida was built on an Indian burial ground. Now anyone who's familiar with horror movies knows it's a good idea to stay well away from ancient Indian burial grounds. It is believed that the ghosts of dead patients haunt the hospital halls, and objects have been known to move by themselves inside the building. Some visitors have said that the hospital beds inexplicably shift and slide about the room. The Royal Hope Hospital is considered to be one of the most haunted locations in Florida. This isolated and abandoned sanatorium in British Columbia, Canada is said to be haunted by a murdered nurse. Sightings of orbs have been reported by visitors, and there's even been claims of spectral voices as well as a depressing change in visitors' moods. The tunnel network below the building is where a lot of the sightings take place. One urban explorer reported being chased down a dark tunnel by a mist-like figure. As far as we can tell, the site has been marked for demolition for years. Apartments and parkland are proposed to be built on the property, but if I were you, I'd think twice before buying a house in this neighbourhood. This sprawling complex once contained some of the most dangerous and misunderstood patients on Earth. Located in rural Victoria, Australia, the asylum was built in 1864 to accommodate an apparent increase of mentally ill citizens in the Victorian colonies. Due to its isolated location, people at the time turned a blind eye to the barbaric practices taking place at the asylum. Often patients were left in tiny wooden boxes, restrained and abandoned until they were deemed calm. Over 10,000 people died in the asylum, and many ghostly apparitions have been spotted over the years. Some visitors have reported unusual pains as they walk by the men's surgery wing. Cold winds often blow out of the old facility director's office. Disembodied moans can be heard down dark hallways. There's a sense of always being watched by figures in the periphery. It's as though a deep sadness has been permanently pressed upon this property. Taunton State Hospital was built in 1854 to relieve a burgeoning demand for psychiatric treatment in Massachusetts. At one stage, it was the home of infamous female serial killer James Toppin, who killed over 30 people. While working as a nurse, Taunton would administer a lethal mixture of drugs to her patients. She'd then hop into bed with them and hold them close as they died. When finally arrested, she gave this chilling statement, saying that she wanted to have killed more people, helpless people, than any other man or woman who ever lived. Taunton is just one reason why Taunton State Hospital is so chilling. It is said that some of the hospital staff would force the patients into the basement and perform bizarre rituals on them, invoking demons and spirits into the halls of the asylum itself. There are reports of a shadow demon who can travel through walls to terrorize visitors. Many have said the demon watches patients sleeping at night from the corner of the room. Also known as the Athens Hospital for the Insane, this creepy building rests on the burial ground of 2,000 people. The hospital is said to be haunted by the ghost of Margaret Schilling, a patient who died in Ward 20. On December 1st, Schilling went missing, and for 42 days no one knew where she went. Then, deep in an abandoned wing of the hospital, her naked, decomposing body was found locked in an empty room, her clothes folded neatly in one corner. Schilling's body was so badly deteriorated that it left a stain on the floor. Despite hospital staff's every effort to clean the floor, a body-shaped mark was permanently etched into the ground. Some urban explorers say they've heard scratching at the door of Ward 20. Perhaps it's the spirit of Margaret Schilling trying to escape her awful fate. Built in 1935, the old Changi Hospital in Singapore was used as a torture chamber and a prison camp by Japanese secret police during World War II. Regarded as the most haunted location in Singapore, the hospital is famous for having a spirit that follows visitors around even after they've exited the building. An indie horror movie called Haunted Changi was filmed on location in the old Changi Hospital. It's a found footage, amateur-style movie that follows several students who investigate the abandoned building. While filming, the crew reported numerous paranormal happenings. They experienced unexplained noises, whispers from dark rooms, and even spotted on several occasions an old woman with what they describe as a dark aura who vanished into nothing. The crew even captured a shadow figure on film, which they kept in the final cut of the movie. Now, if you want to watch Haunted Changi, it can be a bit hard to find. In the description box below, we've put an Amazon link to where you can rent or buy it. Also known as Mayday Hills Lunatic Asylum, this rural Victorian hospital was famous for its lax rules regarding institutionalization. With only 2 signatures, a person could be committed to the institution. Almost 10,000 people died in the building, the patients often restrained and treated with electroshock therapy. Beechworth is reportedly haunted by the ghost of a young Jewish woman who was mysteriously thrown to her death from a window. Because of strict religious beliefs, her body lay decomposing on the ground for 2 days, while a rabbi came from Melbourne to officially move the body. Several visitors claim they've seen a young girl under the window where the incident happened. This photo shows the window where the young girl fell to her death. You can clearly see a white orb floating in the air above the balcony. Another traumatic tale is that of a missing patient who couldn't be found for weeks. Finally, his body was discovered because a local dog named Max was found chewing a human leg near the gatehouse at the edge of the property. A search party investigated the area only to discover the patient's body badly decomposed up a tree. The body was in such a bad state that one of the legs had actually fallen to the ground. Since then, people have reported seeing a man wandering around the gatehouse at night. This photo was taken in the Grevillea wing of the asylum. Ghost hunters Raylan Cable and Alan Tiller took this photo while investigating the grounds at Beechworth. They believe it's the spirit of a young girl kneeling on the floor. Countless other paranormal sightings have taken place at Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Visions of doctors walking down dark hallways, screams, nurses kneeling by bedsides. One ghost hunter says a demonic voice told him to get out and leave the asylum. Is it possible that the dark history of this property is so traumatic that the souls of the employees and those committed are forced to wander the grounds forever?
Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying the creepy content, click this annotation right there, 10 creepy ghost photos you have to see. But if you're new to the channel, then click that there. That'll subscribe you to our channel and you'll get to see content just like this each and every week. Well, that's it for me. I'll see you all next time. Pew!